Howdy, howdy, howdy. Did it work? 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 Oh my goodness, did it work? I don't know if it worked. Did it work? I didn't hear it. I don't hear it when it works. Did it work? Oh my goodness, did it work? And I'm live on birth. It did work. Good stuff. This is what we like. And where did my Congress.gov go? Where did my Congress.gov? Reading Congress.gov. Reading Congress.gov ho. Go to legislation. See where it is. Huh. Neat. We would use this to do something, but let's read. I want the founding documents. Is that the artistic arrow? I don't think I understand what I'm looking for. What would I look up? This is a hot button issue. Did it pass? Okay, so it's still introduced. Alright. Restricting the emergence of security threats that risk Information and Communications Technology Act or the Restrict Act. This bill requires federal actions to identify and mitigate foreign threats to information and communication technology, or ICT. Information and Communication Technology is ICT. So if you see that again, remember it's talking about information and communications technology. Products and services, for example, social media applications. It also establishes civil and criminal penalties for violations under the bill. Specifically, the Department of Commerce must identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, and mitigate transactions involving ICT, that information and communications technology, broadly defined. Products and services. One in which any foreign adversary, such as China, we're declaring a foreign adversary. We have declared a foreign adversary. Why are we declaring a foreign adversary? What is the point of declaring a foreign adversary? Can we do a video on that? Put some links here. Somebody help me out. If you have any links, give them to me. Give them to me. Give them to me. I want them. I want them to right now. Has any interest? So if any foreign adversary such as China has any interest in these social media or ICT products and services, we must identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, and mitigate transactions involving these products. So any foreign adversary, broadly defined, can be declared, and then we are given the Department of Commerce the ability, in fact we say they must identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, and mitigate transactions involving information and communications technology products and services, for example, social media applications. Must identify transactions involving. How could that be interpreted? How do they identify? Well, they must have access to identify. So any transactions involving transaction, the moving of something, the moving of a file to another, the moving of a message to another, the moving of the transmission of data to another, the transmission of... Folks, they're going to be able to listen to any kind of voice chats, any kind of calls records, any kind of messages you've ever sent. Because in order to identify, they must have access. Right? Or no, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Stupid motherfucker talking here, but stupid motherfucker sees what stupid motherfucker sees. Additionally, Commerce, which is shorthand for the Department of Commerce, must identify and refer to the President any covered holding, e.g., for example, stock or security that poses an undue or unacceptable risk to the U.S. national security or the security and safety of U.S. persons. If the President determines that the holding poses such a risk, the President may compel divestment of or otherwise mitigate the risk associated with the holding. Commerce may, 1, designate any foreign government or regime as a foreign adversary. So we're given the Commerce, the Department of Commerce, the power to designate any foreign government or regime as a foreign adversary upon a determination that the foreign government or regime is engaged in a long-term pattern or serious instances of conduct significantly adverse to the U.S. national security, broadly defined, or the security and safety of U.S. persons, broadly defined, and remove such designation. Remove such designation. So the Commerce may designate any foreign government or regime as a foreign adversary. Regime, broadly defined. I wish it would give like a, how do we define a regime? Hey, it says. Regime, a government, especially an authoritarian one, a system or ordered way of doing things. Example, ideological opponents of the regime. Come back here, come back here, come back here. This is what they refer to with the national thing. They say that lead to this dictionary. This is the dictionary. Please note the dictionary tool uses different dictionary databases. No digital dictionary is perfect, and the tool cannot take account the context in which the word you are looking up appears. The dictionary tool is provided as a service to users of this website and is provided as is. No warranty of any kind, either expressed or implied, is given as to the accuracy, reliability, or correctness. So they're waiving any kind of, okay, so that we can't trust, we understand. I understand. I understand. I understand. I understand. Alright. Detention centers with a very high physical regime. System, way of doing things. Designate any foreign government or way of doing things, broadly defined, as a foreign adversary. And that the foreign government or regime is engaged in a long-term upon a determination. So they have to determine that it is engaged in a long-term pattern of serious instances of conduct significantly adverse to the U.S. national security broadly defined, or the security and safety of U.S. persons. Security and safety. What does it mean? Security. The state of being free from danger or threat. A thing deposited or pledged as a guarantee of fulfillment of an undertaking or the repayment of a loan to be forfeited in case of default. A certificate attesting credit, the ownership of stocks or bonds, or... No, this is definitely not what it's saying here. Alright. To remove such designation. Remove. Commerce must notify. What does it mean to remove? Commerce must notify Congress before making or removing a designation. Can remove such a designation. So they can designate and they can also remove their designation. So if they designate them as a foreign whatever, then they must identify all of them. Mitigate transactions in which any foreign adversary has any interest or pose an undue and acceptable risk. So they can have any interest. They declare a foreign adversary. They just declare. They tell Congress and they declare. It just says they must notify Congress. They doesn't say that Congress has to say yes. Commerce just has to say, hey, yo, Congress, I want to do this. And I'm doing it. Thank you. Now, who is the Department of Commerce? We will learn about that later. So, they're going to be able to they get to choose whoever the foreign adversaries are, and they get to identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, and mitigate transactions involving products and services in which any foreign adversary, such as China, has any interest. So, any foreign adversary, they get to pry and get access to, because in order to identify, you must have access to your records and anything that they declare. This bill outlines 1, the enforcement mechanisms, including the action of the Department of Justice, and it's 2, the civil and criminal penalties for violations. They are authored by the CRS. Who's the CRS? Congressional Research Service. The Congressional Research Service of the Library of Congress works exclusively for the United States Congress, providing policy and legal analysis to committees and the members of both the House and the Senate, regardless of party affiliation. CRS provides Congress with analysis that is authoritative, confidential, objective, and nonpartisan. Yeah, let's learn about them. The Congressional Research Service, CRS, works exclusively for the United States Congress, providing policy and legal analysis to committees and the members of the... We already read all of that. As a legislative branch agency within the Library of Congress, CRS has been valued and respected resource on Capitol Hill for more than a century. The CRS is well known for the analysis that is authoritative, confidential, objective, and nonpartisan. Its highest priority is to ensure that Congress has 24/7 access to the nation's best thinking. Best thinking! This website provides information about our organization, career opportunities, and our services to Congress. To access the CRS reports, there's reports now, visit crsreports.congress.gov. Current vacancies. We need a technical information specialist. A contract specialist, a supervisor program specialist, a legislative attorney, constitutional law, administrative law in the courts, and the civil procedure law. And then there's an analyst in the U.S. Defense Policy vacancy. I don't know, man. Run for something. 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 Run. Alright, where were we at? Bill summaries. Oh, you can just listen to it. Text. This is how it's written. This is the 118th Congress's first session, and this is Senate 686. To authorize the Secretary of Commerce to review and prohibit certain transactions between persons of the United States and foreign adversaries, and for other purposes. To authorize the Secretary of Commerce to review and prohibit certain transactions between persons of the United States and foreign adversaries, and for other purposes. To authorize the Secretary of Commerce. If this bill is signed, this will authorize the Secretary of Commerce to review and prohibit certain transaction between persons of the United States and foreign adversaries, broadly defined, and for other purposes, broadly defined. Review and prohibit transactions for other purposes. Let's build a sentence diagram. What is this and for other purposes? To review and prohibit certain transactions between persons in certain transactions and other purposes. Who wrote this and what kind of goddamn language is that? Who the fuck? Mr. Warner, for himself, Mr. Thune, Miss Baldwin, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Minchin, Mr. Moran, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Sullivan, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mrs. Collins, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Romney, and Miss Capito introduced the following bill. So anytime we see Mr. Warner, it means that this whole slew of folks introduced the following bill, in which was read twice and referred to the Committee of Commerce, Science, and Transportation. Okay, a bill to authorize the Secretary of Commerce to review and prohibit certain transactions between persons in the United States, not of the United States, in the United States, broadly defined. Do we mean foreign bases that are United States territory? Or just in the continental United States, Alaska and Hawaii as well, I assume? Broadly defined. Be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Section 1, short title. This act may be cited as the Restricting the Emergence of Security Threats That Risk Information and Communications Technology Act, or the Restrict Act. We get a short title. We get to... Isn't that so snappy? Snappy. We love it. Section 2, definitions in this act. Classified national security information. The term classified national security information means information that has been determined pursuant to Executive Order 13526, note, relating to classified national security information, or any predecessor or successor order to require protection against unauthorized disclosure, and is marked to indicate such classified status if in documentary form. What is this executive order? Do we gotta click that too? Read up on this. God damn, they want you to learn their language and they make it hard. Oh, they make it hard. Oh, they made it hard. Declassification of information related to the origin of COVID-19. What in the fuck are we leaking at now? What was all this? Not later than 180 days after October 14th, 1994, the President shall, by executive order or regulation, establish procedures to govern access to classified information, which shall be binding upon all departments, agencies, and offices of the executive branch of government. Such procedures shall, at minimum, provide that, except as may be permitted by the President, no employee in the executive branch of government shall be given access to classified information by any department, agency, or office of the executive branch of government unless based upon an appropriate background investigation, such as access is determined to be clearly consistent with the national security interest of the United States, broadly defined. Establish uniform minimum requirements governing the scope and frequency of background investigations and reinvestigations for all employees in the executive branch of the government who require access to classified information as part of their official responsibilities. Provide that all employees in the executive branch of government who require access to classified information shall be required as a condition of such access to provide the employing department and agency written consent which permits access by an authorized investigative agency to relevant financial records, other financial information, consumer reports, travel records, and computers used in the performance of government duties as determined by the President in accordance with the Section 3162 of this title during the period of access to classified information as for the period of 3 years thereafter. Now what the fuck is this title? God damn it. Why do I have to read it all the time? Show me it. Oh, and it takes me away. Oh, and it takes me away, and it takes me away, and it takes me away, and it makes it hard to read. Hard to read. Hard to read. I'm an expert in constitutional law. Motherfucker. Motherfucker. Motherfucker, 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 Provide that all employees in the executive branch of government who require access to particularly sensitive classified information as determined by the President shall be required as a condition of maintaining access to such information to submit the employing department or agency during the period of such access relevant information concerning their financial condition and foreign travel as determined by the President as may be necessary to ensure appropriate security, and 5. Establish uniform minimum standards to ensure that employees in the executive branch of government whose access to classified information is being denied and terminated under the subchapter are appropriately advised of the reasons of such denial or termination and are provided an adequate opportunity to respond to all adverse information which forms the basis for such denial or termination before the final action of the department or agency concerned. So that's some employee protection for you. That's good. B. Subsection A. Shall not be deemed to limit or affect the responsibility and power of the agency head pursuant to other law or executive order to deny or terminate access to classified information if the national security so requires. National security broadly defined. Such responsibility and power may be exercised only when the agency head determines that the procedures prescribed by subsection A cannot be invoked in a manner that is consistent with national security. Upon the exercise of such responsibility, the agency head shall submit a report to the Congressional Intelligence Committees. Now, where were we even at to begin with? We're over here. Alright, now, we're now another definition, controlling, holding. Controlling, holding, controlling, holding. Anytime you see controlling, holding, it means a holding with power, whether direct or indirect, and whether exercise or not exercise to determine, direct, or decide important matters affecting an entity. Covered holding. The term covered holding. It means regardless of how or when such holding was or will be obtained or otherwise come to have been held, a controlling holding held directly or indirectly in an ICTS covered holding entity by 1. A foreign adversary, 2. An entity subject to the jurisdiction of or organized under the law of a foreign adversary, or 3. An entity owned, directed, or controlled by an entity described in subparagraphs 1 or 2, and B includes any other holding the structure of which is designed or intended to evade and circumvent the application of this act, subject regulations prescribed by the Secretary. Covered transaction. In general, the term covered transaction means a transaction in which an entity described in subparagraph B has any interest, including through an interest in contract for the provision of the technology or service, or any class such transactions. B. Covered entities. The entities described in this subparagraph are A. Foreign adversary, all that bull crap that we just read. An entity subject to the jurisdiction or organized laws of a foreign adversary. Non-evasion. The term covered transaction includes any other transaction, the structure of which is designed or intended to evade or circumvent the application of this act, subject to regulations prescribed by the Secretary. Timing. The term covered transaction includes a current, past, or potential future transaction. Potential future transaction. You know, you could do this in the future, so you're in trouble. I see you're using I had to default. See, you're using one of those VPNs. No, but you're also really, you're not using one yet? That's strange. I mean, you are rather into privacy and pretty vocal about being into privacy. So why wouldn't you be using a VPN? I bet you're planning on signing up for one, aren't you? Well, aren't you just in trouble then? No, I don't know. That's probably, I'm stupid. Remember, I'm stupid. Critical infrastructure. The term critical infrastructure has the meaning given in the term in section 1016E of the USA Patriot Act. Ooh, let's do a Patriot Act reading after this. This would be so much fun. I love reading this shit. This is bullshit. A bunch of bullshit. But I'm just stupid, so it's not a bunch of bullshit. Entity. What is an entity? How does anyone define an entity? How does anyone define an entity? I gotta read that Patriot Act, man. Entity. The term entity means any of the following. Whether established in the United States or outside of the United States, it means a firm, not a flaccid. A government agency, government department, government commission. It could be a labor union, a fraternal or social organization, a partnership, a marriage, a trust, a joint venture, a corporation, a group, a subgroup, or any other association or organization, whether or not organized for profit. We'll come back to that. Executive department or agency. The term executive department or agency has the meaning given the term executive agency in section 105, title 5 of the United States Code. So let's read the code eventually too. How neat. The executive department and agency. The term executive department and agency has the meaning given to the term executive agency. Oh, I just read that. Foreign adversary. The term foreign adversary means any foreign government or regime determined by the Secretary pursuant in sections 3 and 5 to have engaged in a long-term pattern of serious instances of conduct of power, instances of conduct significantly adverse to the national security of the United States or the security and safety of the United States persons, and includes, unless removed by the Secretary pursuant to Section 6, the People's Republic of China, including the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region and the Macau Special Administrative Region. The Republic of Cuba, we're declaring some foreign adversaries in this bill, god damn it. Have these been declared elsewhere? The Islamic Republic of Iran. The Islamic Republic. What the fuck are we doing, guys? The Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The Russian Federation. And the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela under the regime of Nicolas Maduro Moros. Holding. The term holding. A means an equity interest, a stock, a security, a share, a partnership interest, an interest in a limited liability company, a membership interest, or any participation right or other equivalent, however it is designated of any character, and includes without limitation and any security convertible into an ownership interest in right, warrant, or option to acquire ownership's interest. 10. ICTs, covered holding entity. The term ICTs, covered holding entity, means any entity that A, owns, controls, or manages information and communication technologies, products, and services, and has not less than 1 million United States-based annual active users at any point during the year period preceding the date on which the covered holding is referred to the president, or for which more than 1 million units have been sold to persons in the United States before the date on which the covered holding is referred to the president. Information and communications technologies, products, or services. The term information communications technology products and services means any hardware, software, or any product or service primarily intended to fulfill or enable the function of information or data processing, storage, retrieval, or communication by electronic means, including transmission, storage, and display. The mitigation measure. The term mitigation measure means a measure agreed to in an agreement between any relevant party and the federal government, or ordered by the federal government, and of which any relevant party has been notified in any matter addressed under this act to address any risk arising from a covered transaction or associated with the covered holding. Person. The term person means a natural person, including a citizen or a national of the United States or any foreign country. Relevant executive department and agency head. The term relevant executive department and agency head means a Secretary of Treasury, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the Attorney General, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the United States Trade Representative, the Director of National Intelligence, the Administrator of General Services, the Chairman of Federal Communications Commission, and the heads and other executive departments and agencies as appropriate. Just throw them in there whenever they're needed. We'll need them eventually. Relevant committees of Congress. The term relevant committees of Congress means the Committee of Commerce, Science, Transportation, and the Committee of Judiciary, the Committee on the Judiciary, the Committee on Homeland Security and the Governmental Affairs, the Committee of Foreign Relations, the Committee on Banking and Housing and Urban Affairs, the Committee of Armed Services, the Committee on Rules and Administration, the Select Committee on Intelligence of the Senate, the Intelligence of the Senate, the Intelligence of the Intelligence of the Intelligence of the Senate is lacking, it's lacking, send those bastards packing, the intelligence is lacking. I don't know. I don't know. All right. The Committee of Energy and Commerce, the Committee of Judiciary, the Committee of Homeland Security, the Committee on Oversight and Accountability, the Committee of Foreign Affairs, the Committee of Armed Services, the Committee of House Administration, and the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence of the House of Representatives. What the fuck are we talking about? What the fuck are we talking about? Somebody look that up and make a video for that. Somebody look that up and make a video for that. What the fuck is the Permanent Select Committee of Intelligence to connect? Alright. Secretary. The term secretary means the Secretary of Commerce. Get it through your fucking skull. Secretary, when used in this bill, and this bill only because we are making some definitions for what? The bill, the Restrict Act. Get it through your head. When we say secretary, we mean the Secretary of Commerce, bitch. Alright. Now, transaction. The term transaction means any acquisition, importation, transfer, installation, dealing in or use of any information and communications technology product or service, including ongoing activities such as managed services, data transmission, software updates, repairs, or the provision of data hosting services, or a class of such transactions. Section 3. This is where it gets important, folks. Listen up. Listen up. This is where it gets important, so listen up. I said this is where it gets important, so listen up. This is where it gets important, so listen up. Come on. Why does it take forever to light it up? Light it up, up, light it up, up. I'm on fire. Yeah. Light it up, light it up, light it up. All right. Section 3. Addressing information and communication technology products and services that pose undue or unacceptable risk. In general, the Secretary, in consultation with the relevant executive department and agency heads, is authorized to and shall take action to identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, or otherwise mitigate, including by negotiating, entering into, or imposing and enforcing any mitigation measure to address any risk arising from any covered transaction by any person or with respect to any property subject to the jurisdiction of the United States that the Secretary determines, 1, poses a risk an undue or unacceptable risk of a sabotage or subversion of design, integrity, manufacturing, production, distribution, installation, operation, or maintenance of information and communications technology products and services in the United States. B, catastrophic effects on the Secretary and what? Catastrophic effects on the security or resilience of the critical infrastructure or digital economy of the United States. We have to define critical infrastructure. This is very important to me. We must take a break and do it. We must take a break and do it. We need to do it. We need to do it. We need to do it. Critical infrastructure's protection. Short title. This section may be cited as the Critical Infrastructure Protection Act of 2001. 2001. Congress makes the following findings. The information revolution has transformed the conduct of business and the operations of government as well as the infrastructure relied upon for the defense of national security of the United States. 2. The private business, government, and the national security apparatus increasingly depend on an interdependent network of critical physical and information infrastructures, including telecommunications, industry, financial services, water and transportation sectors. A continuous national effort is required to ensure the reliable provision of cyber and physical infrastructure services critical to maintaining a national defense, continuity of government, economic prosperity, and quality of life in the United States. The national effort requires extensive modeling and analytic capabilities for purposes of evaluating appropriate mechanisms to ensure the stability of these complex and interdependent systems, and to underpin policy recommendations so as to achieve the continuous viability and adequate protection of the critical infrastructure of the nation. See. The policy of the United States. It is the policy of the United States that any physical or virtual disruption of the operation of the critical infrastructures of the United States what the hell are we saying? It is the policy of the United States that any physical or virtual disruption of the operation of the critical infrastructures of the United States be rare, brief, geographically limited in effect, manageable, and minimally detrimental to the economy, human and government services, and national security of the United States. Also, it is the policy of the United States that actions necessary to achieve the policy stated in paragraph 1 be carried out in a public-private partnership involving corporate and non-governmental organizations. And 3, it is the policy of the United States to have in place a comprehensive and effective program to ensure the continuity of essential federal government functions under all circumstances. D. The establishment of national competence for the critical infrastructure protection. 1. Support of critical infrastructure protection and the continuity by National Infrastructure Simulation and Analysis Center. So we're building the National Infrastructure Simulation and Analysis Center. The NISAC. There shall be established the National Infrastructure Simulation and Analysis Center, NISAC, to serve as a source of national competence to address critical infrastructure protection and continuity through support for activities related to counterterrorism, threat assessment, and risk mitigation. 2. The establishment of a national competence for critical infrastructure protection. We need particular support. The support provided under paragraph 1 shall include the following: modeling, simulation, and analysis of systems comprising critical infrastructures, including cyber infrastructure, telecommunications infrastructure, and physical infrastructure, in order to enhance understanding of the large-scale complexities of such systems and to facilitate modification of such systems, to mitigate the threats to such systems, and to critical infrastructures more generally. B. We're going to include acquisition from state and local governments and private sector of data necessary to create and maintain models of such systems and of critical infrastructures generally. Now, wait a minute. They're going to do acquisition from state and local governments and private sector. So, NISAC has the ability to. We're basically saying, come on, NISAC, we're building you. You know what you're going to do? You're going to use the data from the state. That's driver's license and any kind of lawsuits you've been a part of, any kind of legal unions you've been a part of, all of that stuff. We need that from the state, of course. And we also have your social security number and any of your debts and financial things that we can accrue. Now we're going to go over there and ask these private sectors to say, like, hey, you got to give us your data on these folks. You know, why are you collecting this data? Well, you know, we have to build these models to be able to anticipate future terrorism attacks And we got to be able to be ready to anticipate and mitigate such attacks. So we need that data. We need that data. Give us your data. Give us your... Bro. So, see the utilization of modeling, simulation, and analysis under subparagraph A to provide... Where am I at? To provide education and training to policymakers on matters relating to the analysis conducted under that subparagraph, the implications of unintended or unintentional disturbances to critical infrastructures, the responses to incidents or crises involving critical infrastructures, including the continuity of government and private sector activities through and after such incidents or crises. The utilization of modeling, simulation, and analysis under subparagraph A to provide recommendations to policymakers and to the departments and agencies of the federal government and private sector persons and entities upon request regarding means of enhancing the stability of and preserving critical infrastructures. So, like, we're going to get this modeling data, we're going to get all your data, and then, like, we can sell it to private interests if we want it. Do we not get any of that written off on our taxes? Do we not get any kind of, that's our data, man. We could at least get paid for it the same way that you do. That's kind of rude. Recipient of certain support. Okay. Modeling, simulation, and analysis provided under this subsection shall be provided in particular to relevant federal, state, and local entities responsible for critical infrastructure protection and policy. Critical infrastructure defined. This is with the juicy stuff. In this section, the term critical infrastructure means systems and assets, whether physical or virtual, so vital to the United States that the incapacity or destruction of such systems and assets would have a debilitating impact on security, national economic security, national public health or safety, or any combination of those matters. Authorization of appropriations. There is hereby authorized for the Department of Defense for fiscal year 2002 $20 million for the Defense Threat Reduction Agency for activities of the National Infrastructure Simulation and Analysis Center under this section in that fiscal year. Editorial notes. This section was enacted as the Critical Infrastructure Protection Act of 2001 and also as part of the Uniting and Strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct Terrorism Act of 2001 or the USA Patriot Act. The Uniting and Strengthening America, the USA, by providing appropriate tools required to intercept, obstruct Terrorism Act. That's kind of beautiful, honestly. The USA Patriot Act. And not as part of the Robert T. Swofford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, which comprises this chapter. All right. Transfer functions. For transfer functions, personnel, assets, and liabilities, the National Infrastructure Simulation and Analysis Center of the Department of Energy, including functions of the Secretary of Energy relating thereto, to the Secretary of Homeland Security and the treatment-related references. See sections of all of that, Domestic Security and Department of Homeland Security Reorganization Plan of November 25th of 2002, as modified, set out, and as a note under the Section 542 of Title VI. That was a mouthful. What's all this? What the hell is all here? What in the hell? Oh, there we go. We defined it. We had critical infrastructure. We declared all of our private fucking foreign adversaries We said, fuck these countries, we don't like them. Fuck these countries, we don't like them. We don't like them, we don't like them. We don't like them, we don't like them. Why don't we like them? What did they do to us? What did they do to us? And why is it incumbent on the American people to care? Why we hate these people? Why do we hate these people? What did they do? Communism? That's not communism. If there's authoritarianism, that's not communism. Communism is not authoritarianism. This seems to be authoritarianism. But let's see. Let's keep reading to know if I'm right or wrong. I'm probably wrong. Because I'm stupid. And I'm wrong. I'm stupid. I'm stupid. I'm wrong. Alright, where are we at now? Addressing information and communication technology products and services that pose undue and unacceptable risk. We've been talking about that. Procedure. Oh no, we're way behind, huh? Where did we get to? Mitigation measure. A person, yeah. Secretary of State. Alright, in general, the Secretary, in consultation with the relevant executive department and agency heads, is authorized to and shall take action to identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, or otherwise mitigate, including by negotiating, entering into, or imposing and enforcing any mitigation measure to address any risk arising from any covered transaction by any person, or with any respect to any property, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States that the Secretary determines, 1. Poses an undue or unacceptable risk of a. Sabotage or subversion of the design, integrity, manufacture, and production, distribution, installation, operation, or maintenance of information and communications technology, products, and services in the United States. B. Catastrophic effects on the security or resilience of the critical infrastructure of digital economy of the United States. C. Interfering or altering the result or reported results of a federal election as determined in coordination with the Attorney General and the Director of National Intelligence, the Secretary of Treasury, and the Federal Election Commission. Or D. Coercive or criminal activities by a foreign adversary that are designed to determine democratic processes. Designed to undermine. Designed to undermine. That designed to undermine. They designed to undermine. They're designed to undermine. They're designed to undermine. Alright. That are designed to undermine democratic processes and institutions to steer policy and regulatory decisions in favor of the strategic objectives of a foreign adversary to the detriment of the national security of the United States as determined in coordination with the Attorney General, the Director of National Intelligence, and the Direct Secretary of Treasury, and the Federal Election Commission, or otherwise poses an undue or unacceptable risk to the national security of the United States or the safety of the United States persons. B. This is the procedure. In general, not later than 180 days after the date of enactment of this act, the Secretary, in consultation with the relevant executive department and the agency heads, shall review any transaction described in subsection A to A, determine not later than 180 days after the date on which the Secretary initiates such review. If such transaction poses an undue or unacceptable risk under subsection A2 and qualifies as a covered transaction, and B. With respect to a transaction found to pose an undue or unacceptable risk and qualify as a transaction, determine whether the covered transaction should be prohibited or any other action should have been taken to mitigate the effects of the covered transaction. 2. Published explanations. if practicable and consistent with the national security and law enforcement interests of the United States, in coordination and cooperation with the director of national intelligence and the secretary, shall publish information in a classified form to explain how covered transactions that the secretary denied or otherwise mitigated under paragraph 1 meets the criteria established under subsection A or section 4A. Let's remind ourselves, secretary means the Secretary of Commerce. Where are we at now? Certain administrative procedure requirements inapplicable. Section 553 of Title V United States Code shall not apply to any regulations promulgated pursuant to paragraph 1. The fuck is this? Section 5, Title 5 United States Code. Add it in later, please. Let's go find it. Let's go find it. This section applies according to the provisions thereof, except to the extent that there is involved a military or foreign affairs function of the United States, or 2, a matter relating to agency management or personnel, or to the public property, loans, grants, and benefits or contracts. General notice of proposed rulemaking shall be published in the Federal Register unless persons subject thereto are named and either personally served or otherwise have actual notice thereof in accordance with law. Notice shall include a statement of the time, place, and nature of the public rulemaking proceedings, reference to the legal authority under which the rule is proposed, and either the terms or substance of the proposed rule or a description of the subjects and issues involved, except when notice or hearing is required by the statute. This subsection does not apply. To interpretive rules, general statements of policy or rules of agency organization, procedure, or practice, or when an agency for good cause finds and incorporates the finding in a brief statement of reasons therefore in the rules issued, that notice and public procedure thereon are impracticable, unnecessary, or contrary to public interest. After notice required by this section, the agency shall give interested persons the opportunity to participate in the rulemaking through submission of written data, views, or arguments with or without opportunity for oral presentation After consideration of the relevant matter presented, the agency shall incorporate the rules adopted a concise general statement of their basis and propose. When rules are required by statute to be made on the record after opportunity for an agency hearing, sections 556 and 557 of this title apply instead of this subsection. The required publication or service of a substantive rule shall be made not less than 30 days before its effective date, except a substantive rule which grants or recognizes an exemption or relies a restriction, and interpretive rules and statements of policy, or as an otherwise provided by an agency for good cause, found and published with the rule. Each agency shall be given an interested person the right to petition for an issuance, amendment, or repeal of a rule. Shall. This is important. So they're saying that when they go to make rules under this act, we don't have to give a right. We don't have to give interested persons the right to petition for the issuance, amendment, or repeal of a rule. Is that what it's saying? Somebody back me up on this. Pursuant to paragraph 1. So they make so the Secretary of Commerce gets to say whether or not your transaction poses an undue and acceptable risk, and then they don't give you the right to appeal it. That's kind of fucked up. I gotta poop, but I'm enjoying